As we move into this, I want to explore just a few of the reasons why we might be looking at alternatives to food. And this is actually a common question that I get from reinforcement trainers who are very adamant about using food. Why wouldn't you? When we've got all of these assets and all of the advantages of using food, why would you ever choose to do something different? And I think understanding, or at least raising our level of awareness here, allows us to be more creative as trainers and behavior consultants for considering when or if or how we consider other alternatives. Now, the first one that comes to mind for me is more specific to my veterinary experience. And I get so much pushback, especially when I'm talking about cooperative care training within the veterinary setting, or creating positive conditioned emotional responses for our canine and feline learners in the clinic, to say, what if we could pair those experiences with something that is enjoyable, such as food? And immediately I will get examples like, but what if they're coming in because of an anesthetic procedure and we're concerned about giving them food prior to that particular procedure? What then, doc? What do we do then? Or maybe it's examples similarly within the veterinary field where we say, gosh, maybe they're coming in for some blood work, and it's required that they be fasted for at least some of those samples. Otherwise, it actually interferes with the metabolic markers that we're using as part of our diagnostic testing. What then, doc? What do we do about those circumstances, right? So there may be examples within the veterinary setting where food is actually problematic. Now, we're going to come back to some troubleshooting on each of these sort of objections or hurdles or roadblocks in just a couple of slides. So I'll move on for right now. In other cases, still on sort of the medical side of things, what if we can't use food as a reinforcer because the animal's on an extremely limited diet due to some degree of hypersensitivity? And whether that's something that's manifesting as more of a skin-related issue, whether it's something that's more gastrointestinal or showing up in other ways, we may be extremely limited. And just as I said before, the value of food varies from one individual to the next. We often find that with some of our hypoallergenic or minimally allergenic diets, they're not always terribly attractive to these animals. So even though we say, yeah, we have food available, we're feeding the dog every day, to think about leveraging that food, if it's not particularly valuable to the animal, the thought of leveraging that as a reinforcer doesn't get us a whole lot of traction. So we may be looking to other solutions there as well. The next example is looking at those dogs that are not motivated by food. Now, as I said before, every animal is motivated to some degree by food, but there are absolutely animals that are not particularly excited about it or don't eat fluently. To borrow a phrase from my friend and co-presenter here, Kathy Sadeo, she does an amazing job of talking through the fluency of eating. And unless that is a comfortable pattern for the animal, we're going to struggle when it comes to using ingestive patterns as a reinforcer. We're going to come back to this one because there's some really cool stuff that we can tease out here. Sometimes the objection comes from the caregivers who say, you know what, I tried that. I kept forgetting to take the food out of my pocket, and then I would throw my clothes into the laundry, and before I know it, I've got food everywhere and my laundry is gummed up. I just cannot even be bothered. Or perhaps it's the client who says, no, I put food in my pocket, but now I take my jacket off, and now my dog has eaten their way through the jacket to get to the food. So messy could be physically messy or could be problematic in a couple of other ways. So there may be an objection that exists for clients where they're saying, hey, I don't want to use food. This may be the reason why they're a bit soured on that entire process.